Ew, oh my god, I can't believe how ugly this thing is. Can you believe they gave this to Agnes Crumplebottom? Actually, you know what? I can believe it because it's EA, so what do you expect? What's up, guys? Welcome back to Sunset Valley. So like I was saying, we're actually doing Agnes Crumplebottom's house today, and this house is very interesting. It's got a ridiculous roof, it's got a huge weird shape, it's kind of like got like little classical elements in it, but most of it's kind of really modern. And it's not cohesive, it's not balanced, it's not really anything. I don't like it at all. So this house is going to be a bit of a challenge, but I decided that I was going to focus most of my energy on the exterior. So as you can see, the first thing I'm doing is I'm actually cutting off the diagonal rooms that are at the edge of the house. It's like too hard to roof, it's sticking out all over the place, it's really hard to landscape too. And I thought this house could really use a little bit of simplification. Like this house had too much going on. It had about like 100 windows, extra roofs where it didn't need them. So I thought I'm just going to cut it down to size. I didn't want to change the shell of too many of these houses, but sometimes with EA, like you don't really have a choice. So yeah, the baby room is actually going to have like all the same stuff in it. It's gonna have like the same carpet, the same wallpaper and everything. I just kind of moved it over a little bit. So I'm gonna do like a little bit of a recreation. So don't worry about the lore, it's still gonna be there. But yeah, so like for the outside, like I ended up just sticking with a flat roof. I'm still messing around with the roofs here. Like at the front though, it kind of looks like an office building. So I don't think it's very pretty at all, but I decided to just kind of like add in like a little bit of like front bump out details to kind of round it out. I guess you'll see in a bit. But in the meantime, I will talk about Agnes Crumplebottom's story because most of you know it. And for those of you who don't, you'll want to know it. And for those of you who do know it, you probably want to hear it again. So Agnes Crumplebottom got married, but unfortunately her husband passed away, and he passed away before she got pregnant. And they were planning on having a baby. So there's an unfinished nursery up on the second floor, which is something that kind of like tugs on a lot of Simmer's heartstrings. Oh yeah, and before I forget, because I'm looking at it now, the dining room was another like diagonal room kind of like sectioned off on the end. And I noticed that the living room in this house is so big, so I may as well make it like a living dining space. So I ended up doing that a little bit later. I just kind of turned this area into a porch. But yeah, there's even like a bumped out bay window diagonal area there that I just cut right off as well. I didn't want any diagonal walls. I didn't want anything like that. I just wanted like nice cubism and modern. So as you can see, it's starting to turn into something like from Oasis Landing. Like I kind of have like the big floor to ceiling windows kind of just like sticking out one tile, and I'm still sticking with base game items. So like a lot of this style doesn't really require any DLC, and like in general, like The Sims 3 doesn't require any packs for building. Like it's nice to have extra things, but for the most part, because you have like the color wheel and like create a style, like you can put any color and texture on anything, so you don't really need to buy anything. Like in The Sims 4, you end up buying like a certain pack just because it has a white window or a certain brown chair that matches a table. Speaking of which, I'm having a little bit of trouble doing that. I have this wood detail and accent that's something that I would normally do, but it wasn't really feeling the vibe for Agnes. And in fact, this whole house really doesn't, and that's kind of the point, because I guess the concept is that like she married him and like this is his style, not her style, because she would be more like old money. Like Agnes is like an old rich lady in the other Sims games, right? So like I would imagine her as more of a land grab, but instead she's stuck in this ugly modern house, so I just kind of kept with that vibe. And you'll notice I'm actually using like a lot of landscaping and like bamboo trees and stuff, and that's because again, like this house is quite simple. Like I kind of put a couple bump outs and stuff, and I'm kind of tricking you with all the black lines and stuff, but really it's just a few rectangles kind of smushed together. And I find when you have a basic shape, you can really accentuate it with landscaping, because I like doing like hedges around the property, big tall trees and bushes and specialty trees like bamboo, and these are things that you can only really get with like a wealthier, more affluent sim. And Agnes is one of the few times that we're going to be able to do that, but I also want to do it in a way where it doesn't lag up your game too much. Like I don't want to put so much clutter and items and bushes everywhere that it's going to like, you know, make your game run slower or anything, but I still want it to be nice and decorated. So that's where I was going for and kind of found this happy medium. I don't know, I'm pretty proud of it. And like I said, I spent most of the time doing the outside, and that was kind of my whole concept for this, because like when we go inside the house, like you'll notice like the wood floors, the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedrooms, all that stuff is pretty good. Oh, and I'm like decorating the little like grave area because we still have like the husband's remains, right? And that means we're gonna see a ghost too. And I like kind of having ghosts like walking around the property. Like I grew up on The Sims 1, right? And whether you grew up in The Sims 1, 2, or 3, like the Goth family is one of the families that you're initially drawn to. And they always have a graveyard, so you always get exposed to the ghost Sims. And full disclosure, Kyle's clawing at his scratching thing behind me, so you can ignore that. But yes, we're starting on the inside of the build now. And like I said, like I was really pleased with the interior. Like nothing really clashed. It was really not in any sort of EA style from what I could tell. It didn't have that 70s flair that the rest of Sunset Valley had, so I decided to actually keep most of the elements. I kept the wallpapers, the furniture, most of the kitchen and bathroom, pretty much. Like the only changes I did was I had to rearrange things because I cut off parts of the house. So I had to stick the dining room into the living area. I needed to like move around some bathroom stuff. I had to move a seating area over. But since this house was too big anyway, I didn't really have any problem fitting the furniture. I thought I would just delete the furniture, but I ended up using it just to fill in the empty spaces in the original house. Yeah, like the kitchen I barely touched, like this bathroom, like the toilet had to be moved and stuff. I just put the privacy partition in front of the window because I thought that made the most sense. But don't worry, at the end I add like curtains and blinds and stuff. And that was actually a really nice change because not only was it easier for me, because like I've said this before, but personally I find shells a lot easier to do than interior design. And a lot of simmers feel the opposite. A lot of simmers like redecorating a house, but they don't want to touch the shell. I'm the opposite. I was very happy to just kind of fix the roof and fix the walls and stuff, and then just use elements of what they already had. Actually, speaking of which, now that I see it in the ensuite bathroom, there's this like puzzled marbled floor. It's so weird. So I changed that at the end to like a marble tile or something. But other than that, like I kept all the walls, all the floors, all the furniture, all the decorations. The rugs I changed because they have this like floral old-fashioned style, because this house, like I said, even though it was like a modern house, there was like little splashes of classic elements. And for me, I like going all the way kind of like one or the other. And although I do prefer more old-fashioned mansions, I'm glad we stuck with the modern twist, because then she's like all alone and like sad and has no baby, and she's in this ugly modern house that she doesn't like. And even though it would be liked by someone with new money, Agnes is old money. So you can play a storyline to like have her escape from this, because it's full of horrible memories too. I was actually thinking at the end, I'm gonna stick a writer's desk inside of the baby's room, because her lifelong aspiration is actually to be an author. So then it's kind of like you can pick the baby or the career, right? I don't know. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. But yeah, that pretty much brings us to the end of the build, and I didn't really like talk too much about the inside, so why don't we just jump into first person and I'll give you the grand tour. See you there. Welcome to our renovated version of Agnes Crumplebottom's house. It's actually called August Moon, which like I don't really understand the name. So if someone knows about that, you can let me know in the comments, I guess. But yes, looking around, I actually did a lot more landscaping than I remember. I added all like the bamboo trees, I added some normal trees, I did the flower bushes a little different, and I hedged all around the front because it had so many like floor to ceiling windows. I figured if we're going for this modern style, I'm gonna hide it a little bit. And they all have blinds and stuff, so you don't have to worry about that. I also added a nice little path over here to the back. There's not really a backyard, but there is this back patio area. All this stuff was already here. I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit and just kind of like fixed the parts that I chopped off. And I also added like some stairs and like broken in the fences, so that way you can get like into it from all around the property. Because I hate when my Sims have to go like all the way around when they could just go like through one area, right? But the biggest changes actually came from the roofing, because like this roof was absolutely awful. There was pieces sticking out all over the place, so I decided to just like flatten it down. I just did like a few platforms to make it interesting. You can do that stuff with build sheets. I won't really get into it in this video, but I'll do like a build tutorial on all the build sheets at some point. And as we enter in the front door, for those of you who know this house well, you're going to be greeted with a pleasant surprise, because most of it's going to be like what you remember. There's a nice entryway here with a little seating area, a little bit of art sculpture over here. And over here is the giant living room, which I decided to squeeze in the dining room as well, because I figured why not? The furniture was just more spaced out. I just kind of compacted it in a little bit. And I separated it off with this half wall, just so that way you have like two separate areas, even though it's open concept. I wanted to keep it modern, and part of that is keeping it open concept, right? So unfortunately I had to stick with it, but I think it turned out pretty good. Going into the bathroom here, it's pretty much the same. I kept the same wallpaper, the same tub, everything. I like the marble details, so I figured why change it? There's not really much to talk about in here. So going into the kitchen, again, pretty much everything that you remember, except instead of exiting off into the dining room, I just kind of ended the house here. It's still a good size. You got lots of counters, sink, dishwasher. I actually noticed that there's a fire. It's actually a pretty good size, and I was thinking, oh, they didn't put a smoke detector, but I noticed that it's like right under the stove. I think I added one somewhere else. I think I'm actually going to delete the one under the stove, because I like the one like where I put it on the wall here. But yeah, the rest of the downstairs is mostly for decoration. So going upstairs, we have like the same hallway pretty much. I have the chess table right here at the end like usual, but the baby's room has been slightly moved, right? So going into this door, we have the incomplete baby room, which is kind of sad walking into it. I left the same crib, the same giraffe painting, the same sheep wallpaper. I like the sheep wallpaper for a baby. And this is the carpet she was going for before she got the bad news. But yes, despite being such a big house, we only have one room left, but it's pretty big. It's the master bedroom. Oops, I forgot to paint the end of the platform, but I decided to add the bed up onto a platform because again, this room is so big and I wanted to keep it open. So adding a platform or like a half wall are just ways that you can kind of separate out a room. And then for this part, I just separated it with a little bit of a rug and like a little TV area, but I snuck in some bookshelves too because she's a bookworm. And since I added an extra bump out, I didn't know what to do with it. So I made it this like walk-in closet. So she has like mirrors all around the room. She has a vanity, she has her dresser, her perfume. It's actually kind of trippy in here. I'm gonna get out. And yeah, I guess the last thing to look at is the master bath, which again, I had to change the floor tile because they used those like puzzle piece children's floor tiles. They made them in marble, but it didn't really work. So I just made like a solid marble floor. But yeah, pretty much everything is the same because EA did a pretty good job styling the inside of this thing. I know, I'm as shocked as you. But yeah, so that was the Crumplebottom house. What did you guys think? think. Have you guys played in this house before? I bet most of you have, because Agnes Crumplebottom and her story is one of the most iconic things in Sunset Valley. It's just unfortunate because this was the first Sims 3 world ever made, and like the devs were still trying to figure out what modern meant, I guess, which is a shame because you could have easily put her in a nice little classic mansion. But as I've said before, my main goal with this series is to kind of like do like recreations of the things that you know and remember. So I hope that by keeping the inside the same, I can still give you that while still kind of redoing the outside to something that's a little bit more tasteful. But I'm far from a perfect builder, so if you have any tips, you can always leave them in a comment down below as well. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe for some more Sims content. Honestly, I'm just having a blast. I'm breezing through these. I'm doing like one a day and I'm loving it. And it's funny because building in The Sims 3 was always so tedious for me, but doing renovations is a lot simpler and I'm able to like really focus on what I want to do. And since I'm not changing things too much and just sticking with their original style, I don't have to make too many choices. But of course, some houses need more work than others, and the next one is a doozy. So we'll see you in the next one. Boom.